Greetings, Moonlight citizens. This is your Moonlight King, the man on the moon, here on Moonlight Kingdom Reviews with the review for the 2024 super villain, anti-hero, anti-villain, whatever you want to call it, movie Kraven the Hunter. Yeah, starring Aaron Taylor Johnson and Russell Crowe and an assorted list of characters. Yeah, I'm gonna be reviewing that tonight. The final entry in the Sony universe of Marvel characters in 3, 2, 1, boom. Okay, folks, here is the non-spoiler portion of this review. I ain't done one of these in a long time, okay? Because normally it's a movie where I'm like, you know what? Who cares if I spoil the shit? It don't matter. If you were gonna see it, you were gonna see it. If you weren't, then hell, this review might convince you to go see it, even in spite of spoilers, or you weren't gonna see it anyway, so it didn't matter. But here, man, here I'm going to give you a non-spoiler review because I think that you may want to see it. I'm telling you right now, before I get into it, I give this movie about a 7. I liked it. I give it a 7 out of 10, at its the way I rate movies that every movie starts at 10 and then works its way down over the course of the film. There were some moments that were like, I'm thinking this is about a 6, but there were never a moment in this movie where it hit lower than a 5. But then with that third act, I'm like, yeah, this is just barely, it just barely qualifies for a 7 in my eyes. That's my review of it. It gives a 7 out of 10. I give it a 7 out of 10. The performances from the likes of Aaron Taylor Johnson, Russell Crowe, Ariana DeBose, Fred Heschinger, I hope I'm saying that right, Alessandronivola. Shit, there's a lot this movie got going for it. Like it's, the action, not getting into spoiler but the action was, it wasn't all cut to shit. I could actually see what was going on. I could feel like the impact of like the blows when they landed. And, granted, it wasn't, even though the R rating was a wise call, you could have made a movie about Kraven the Hunter that was PG-13, but it wouldn't have had that same sting to it. This is, granted, we'll likely never see a R-rated Tarzan movie, but this is probably the closest thing we're going to get. The closest thing we got to a more adult Tarzan movie was that Tarzan movie that Warner Brothers made back in the day with that Skarsgård guy. So yeah, this was like that in a lot of areas. The Kraven in this movie, he definitely wasn't. He's not a shot for shot like recreation of who he is in the comics. He's a different guy. Whereas that Kraven was all about the hunt and taking on like the most dangerous animals nature has to offer. This Kraven is hunting people because ultimately like their like humanity is more dangerous than any other animal given the things we can accomplish and the things we're capable of. And he's going after like poachers and just evil people who are responsible for heinous acts all over the world. Like he's willing to go to any lengths to get these people. He's honestly a lot more likable than he is in the comics because Kraven in the comics, he was never a figure of like that you could empathize with. He was more or less a guy like, yeah, you felt sorry for him, but you didn't really like him all that much. You had no reason to like him. He was a straight up villain. And Aaron Taylor Johnson's performance in this movie, you do get to actually like Kraven, which was a serious an issue that was happening with a lot of these Sony Marvel movies, these late, these villain turned hero movies, was that the heroes just weren't that likable. Morbius, Madam Web, they were, unlikable in a lot of parts, but, Aaron Taylor Johnson is very likable in this role as Kraven when he's just, going about his day, and you kind of root for him to take on the bad guys, to defeat the bad guys because, the bad guys are so good at being bad guys. Alessandro Nivola as Alexis the Savage is, a fun, he's a memorable villain. I'll get more into that as the review goes on. Everybody, there wasn't really anybody in this movie that, you could say like, oh, this person dragged the movie down or, oh, this performance was bad or anything. Some of the accents, came and went, like some people sounded Russian who were supposed to sound Russian, but then other people sounded British in certain places. Some people sound American in certain places. It just, there were moments where like accents just fluctuated throughout the film. I'll say that much. But yeah, thought it was weird that like a kid who was born in Russia but raised in the UK sounds doesn't sound like he's from the UK at all. That's like Kraven's brother. So it's like why don't you don't sound English at all, man. You've lived in the UK since you were a kid. There ain't a little bit of like Cockney or Geordie or none of that in you, huh? Whatever, man. Whatever. You skimp on that kind of, you ignore that kind of shit. This movie's also funny. You know, this movie has comedic moments in it. It has like moments where the character is allowed to be charming and just, yeah, essentially be likable. You know, like it's just, I can't stress this enough, but this dude is actually likable. Kraven the Hunter, I never thought I'd say this, but Kraven the Hunter is like the most likable character in this, in that whole universe, the Sony universe of disconnected characters, like just, yeah, he's arguably the best character. This is the best movie. It has the best action. Benjamin Wallfish did the soundtrack, but unfortunately there was only like one song, and that was like the main theme, the Kraven the Hunter theme that played at the end. That was the one song I took note of. The other music in the film just sort of faded into the background. You didn't really make note of it. Yeah, the film in its entirety, like from beginning to end, was very efficient. It was well made. There was no fluff. There were no scenes that felt like they went on too long. There wasn't a scene. There wasn't a point in the movie where I was sitting there like, okay, why is this here? Like, we can do without this scene. We don't need this scene here. What's the point of this? There was never a point where I was asking that. And, I'll give it credit where credit's due. This movie is surprisingly well made. It stars Aaron Taylor. I already said the cast. It's directed by a man named JC Chandor. The story is by Richard Wank. It was distributed by Sony Pictures, and yeah, a current box office of $26 million. I don't know what the budget was, but that seems pretty good. That's a pretty solid that looks okay, unless I look at the budget and it turns out this movie cost an ungodly amount of money. I mean, $26 million in 3 days. I mean, that's kind of impressive. That's pretty impressive. I'd give it that much. $26 million in 3 days. If it steadily, if it continues down that path, it should be all right. It should be okay. I mean, it only came out 3 days ago. So if it continues, up that path and it makes money on a steady rate, it should make back its budget reasonably. So I hope that it's a success. I would hate for the final movie in the SUMC to go out on a bust, especially when this one is actually good. Like this one is actually a really good movie. I'll give it credit for that. Like it's nowhere near the level of Madam Web. It is nowhere near the level of Morbius. Like, I'll get more into why that is later on in the spoiler portion review. But yeah, I really enjoyed this film. I went into this movie not expecting anything because it was the SUMC. And yeah, I found a lot to enjoy. The dynamic between the characters, the action sequences, the different locations the movie went to. And, just it's good. It's the one good movie in the SUMC. So yeah, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. Thus ends the non-spoiler review, and on to the spoiler review for Kraven the Hunter. And now, ladies and gentlemen, ladies, bros, non-binary those, and everyone included, I'd give you the spoiler review for Kraven the Hunter. If you don't want the movie spoiled and want to enjoy all its glory, then I suggest you depart. In 3, 2, 1, I gave you a chance. Now let's get into it. If you're here still, you've either seen it or you weren't going to watch it anyway. But if you weren't going to watch it anyway, I strongly suggest you go watch it. Go see this movie in the theater. Support it. Give Sony the right idea. Let them know that, hey, the rest of your universe was garbage, but this ain't garbage. This is the gem amidst the trash, okay? Anywho, into the review, boys. Man, I watched Double Toasted. I watched Charlie from Penguin Zero, and I saw just about a lot of trusted sources rag on this movie. People whose reviews I generally trust and validate when it comes to like what is and isn't good, just rag on this movie, saying, it's one of the very worst, It's right up there with Madame Web and Morbius, but, I went to go see it for myself. I didn't have any preconceived notions. That's a lie. I was expecting it to be not great. I wasn't expecting it to be great. It's just like, I may as well. I didn't even plan to go see it. I was at the movies and it was like, I gotta see something. What's available? Red One's already started. This has already started. Man, I can't go see Gladiator. That's already 30 minutes in. But oh, wait. Oh, Kraven the Hunter just started 5 minutes ago. Let me go check it out. I may as well watch something. When I get out of here, I'll wash my eyes out with something better. That was the vibe that I was going into. And, shit, this ain't bad. It ain't bad. I'll give it that much. It's a 7 out of 10, man. Like, I was impressed. So, yes, I say it here, post, man. Like, that's the one time I will look at these trusted sources of criticism, trusted sources of movie review, and say, y'all don't know. I don't know what the fuck y'all are watching, because y'all weren't watching this movie, god damn it. I actually like this movie. It's surprisingly good. It's if you hold it up to MCU standards, it's got nothing special. But if you hold it up to Sony Universe of Marvel crap standards, holy shit, this is amazing. It's the best thing they've did since those Venom movies. And you can tell it's actually really good because it's got nothing to do with Spider-Man. Like, fucking nothing. It doesn't try to shoehorn a link in anywhere. This is a movie that very clearly was setting out to do its own thing. Granted, you have those allusions to Spider-Man, like Kraven's mother being afraid of the spiders, and when he's tripping out, like he sees like spiders raining down. Like, that's the closest thing you get. That's all you get. Beyond that, nothing. You know? Yeah, shit. So getting into this story. No, he's in this prison. Kraven's in this prison pretending to be this other prisoner with a tattoo so he can take out this guy who's some kind of sinister boss responsible for evil dealings all throughout the world, right? And he does. It has this amazing sequence where he scales the prison walls to like get high enough to get out through a window and then run out into the freezing cold so he can catch a plane and fly out of here. Fly to safety. It's really good. It's actually, it's a pretty good chase sequence. It was reminiscent of like Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol when Ethan Hunt gets out of jail at that Russian prison. Not exactly that level of quality, but it's in the discussion. They get a flashback to when Kraven was younger. So he's sitting on this like plane and he's thinking back on his whole life. So we get a flashback to when Kraven was younger and he's with his brother at this boarding school. The kid who plays Kraven in these flashbacks is the same kid who was in that Christmas movie, You Better Watch Out, Levi Miller. He was also Peter Pan in that prequel movie, Pan. So, like, yeah, he's got a good filmography to him. And since that movie and since Better Watch Out and since Pan, man's gone through some serious puberty since then. Because, man, this voice got deep as fuck, man. He's almost as tall as Russell Crowe, man. Like, what the fuck? He's supposed to be like young Kraven, like still in high school Kraven, but he's like the same height as Russell Crowe. And he talks like this already. So it's like, man, I was supposed to, hey, man, nice to see Sony still doing that thing where they cast they cast adults to play high school kids. Oh, nice to see they're still doing that. Man, I remember writing down, it looks like they cast the dude in his 20s to play a high school kid. I looked at how old Levi Miller is, and holy shit, y'all really did cast the dude in his 20s to play a high school kid. Oh, shit. Man. Oh, man, shit. So their mother passes away, and Craven's dad goes to take Kraven and his brother on a hunting trip. And like, so he's gonna take them on a hunting trip so like they can become men and like move on from this. And I think it's a thing like you would think he would be like, okay, we're gonna go back home, get prepared for the funeral. He's like, nah, we're just gonna go off on a hunting trip because we finally found that lion that I was looking for. And this is a monstrous fucking lion, man. This is fucking an absolute monstrosity of an animal. Like, just, but moving away from that, it is clear, like, this is no normal lion. This is the lion from Ghost in the Darkness, man. Like, this is that lion on steroids. Like, just the lion from Ghost in the Darkness, but he works out at Gold's Gym, you know? Anyway, the relationship between, the Kravinoff kids and the dad, I don't know, especially like Kraven's brother was kind of reminding me of the relationship between Himmel Shank in the movie The Pest and his dad. Because you got the dad who's all about the hunt and like, making a name for himself by hunting people and not hunting people, but like just hunting in general. And they got a son who's just having none of that shit and the dad just views him as weak because of it. It's kind of like that. But yeah. But they're not alone on this hunting trip. They're joined by Alexei Sitsevich, you know, and it's Alexis Sitsevich. He's also Alexis Sitsevich is the normal name for the guy who goes on to become the Rhino. He's Alexis Sitsevich because he like makes a point to say his whole name. And yeah, it's like, who are you? It's like, I am Alexis Sitsevich. And it's like, you're nobody. Out here, you're nobody. You ain't got nothing. So tell me again what you like. What do you have to offer me, man? Like, but at least this hilarious line from Nikolai Kravenov, where he's like, I am teaching my boys about my sons about stalking, and you and your imbecilic voice are stalking me. So be quiet. Oh shit! Like I got a chuckle out of it. There's so much shit. You got this guy that's like, it's. You look at this dude and you can't help but think like, man, what are you doing here? You are not You don't look like the hunting type, man. You just look like an accountant or something who's, I don't know, like you should be working in a bank or somewhere. Like, what are you doing out here? Like yeah. But anyway, man. So Kraven gets attacked by this monstrous lion. It drags him off away from his, family and everything. And what's this? Oh yeah, so it drops him near this little girl named Calypso, who, before all this happened, got a conversation with a family member, and she was given this serum. She was told about all the mystical properties that this serum has, so she gives that serum to Kraven while he's all laying there injured and bloodied, and some of the blood of the lion drips down into his blood, and it mixed with his DNA. And this serum is like one part, Assassin's Creed Animus, one part heart-shaped herb from Black Panther, because we see like all the genetic memories of the lion that bit Kraven. We hear the lady who gave Calypso the serum narrate what it does and like all its properties, and get that with the blood of the lion mixing in, and it like changes his DNA and all that shit. Like this movie, man. Like what the you know Okay, I don't need an explanation on how this works. This is definitely a just shut your brain off. Don't think about it too hard, okay? You think about it too hard, the shit stops being fun. That was the vibe I'm getting. That's why I rated this movie so highly. Like, it's a movie where you go in there not expecting much, and you'll just like, I was fine. Like, yeah, that was good. That was an actually really good movie. Yeah. So I think, oh yeah, yeah. So Craven has a argument with his dad after he's like all healed up from his injuries. He discovers that his dad, he finally his dad tracked down and beheaded the lion, and the head of that monstrous lion is like he put it up on the wall of like his house, and he's like, he tells him that you'll never have to be afraid ever again. Cause like, you know, he asked him like, why didn't you shoot? Why didn't you do something? You could have gotten your brother killed. You almost got yourself killed because like you were afraid. Well, like guess what? Now you'll never have to be afraid again. He shows him the head of this thing, and it pisses him off. Because he, even at a young age, he did care about the animals. He didn't want to hunt. He didn't want to kill anybody. He even has this line as young Craven where he's like, if we really wanted to hunt properly, like we wouldn't hunt with these weapons, like we wanted a fair fight, we'd, just do it with our bare hands or something. This shit makes it unfair. It does lend this credence to the thing of like, heck, if we didn't have guns, we wouldn't hunt at all. I'm for real. I don't think we'd hunt at all. Like we would hunt deer and stag and bulls and that, like the shit we need. But I seriously doubt people would be hunting animals like rhinos and elephants and whatever if we didn't have guns. Like, we people might be poaching, but we wouldn't be poaching in as crazy numbers as we do now if we didn't have guns. If it was a proper, like, even playing ground where we just went hand to hand with the creatures we were hunting, we wouldn't hunt as nearly as we did. That's just my opinion, as much as we do. That's just my opinion on the matter. But hey, so he runs away from home. Yeah, because he's just had it. He can't stay here anymore. He just straight up leaves his brother. And nope, it weirds me out that at no point is he like think to take his brother with him. He leaves because he can't, he can't stand the being around his dad anymore. I think it's like a scenario where it's like, if I stay here any longer, I'm gonna wind up killing this fool. I'm gonna wind up taking this dude out if I stay here any longer. Now that I'm all like, I could feel myself getting all souped up and shit because he blames his dad for his mother's death because he's the one responsible for sending her away, and he keeps saying, she was weak. Like he can't stand living like this anymore. Like if you hate this motherfucker so much that you want to run away from home, and you claim to love your little brother, why don't you take your brother with you, man? Like just for real, why don't you take him with you? Why you? Yeah, they have this like Harry and the Hendersons moment where he's like, he tells him he's got to leave, and his little brother's like, if you're gonna go, then just go, like. But yeah. So after he runs from home, there's a shot where he's walking through the woods for a bit. I just thought he looks like the eldest son from that show Colony, or like the dude from what's that movie Axel? That movie with the robot dog? Yeah, that movie Axel. Yeah, he looks like that guy. There's this random shot where he's walking through the woods and he just looks like that guy. Alex Newstatter, yeah. He looks like that guy. But I just thought I'd mention that. But yeah, you get this montage of him, adjusting to his powers. He can run really fast. He can jump really high. He's stronger than he was before. And, it's a very Spider-Man 1 type scenario where he gets to, come to terms with who he is now. And he takes on these poachers who are taking out these wildebeests. And his first kill, despite the fact that this movie is rated R, for some reason his first kill in the movie, in this flashback sequence, is shot from way back, so you don't see how grisly it is. And it's kind of like they were kind of going for PG-13, but yeah, there are some moments in this film where it's like they were kind of going for PG-13, but like halfway through production, someone was like, fuck it. Let's go rated R. It's the last movie. Who gives a shit? Let's give the people what they want. Like, yeah, that's kind of what it felt like in this aspect. But like, yeah. Say what you want about this movie, but it's efficient. None of the film scenes waste any time, and they move from one scene to the next almost instantaneously. Like when Kraven was laying up in the hospital, and like, okay, son, we're going home. The lady in the hospital was like, no, we need to stay here for like observation for a while. And it's like, no, he's coming home with me. Very next scene, they're back home. Or like, earlier they were like, we're going to Africa to look for this lion. Cut. Very next scene, they're in Africa. We don't need to like see a montage of like a plane flying across a map, or we don't need to see them like actually like a transition shot from inside the car to African savannah and then show them in Africa. It just cuts straight to them already in Africa. When a character needs to go from one place to another, it's like, okay, I'm gonna go to this place now. Like they hang up the phone. Next shot, they're already in that place. This movie is efficient with its time. It's efficient with its scenes, and there's no fluff. All thriller, no filler. Yeah, that's another point for the movie. Something positive about it. So there's a line where Kraven says, Kraven says, now he's all grown up. We're back in the present day. There's a line that he says that I can't help but agree with, and I can kind of relate to when he's talking to his brother. He's like, I don't hate people. I hate what people do, but I don't hate people. It's like, yeah, I can relate to that, man. I get that. I mean, not to the extent that I'm willing to like run off into the woods and live in the middle of a strange log cabin or something, but like, I can agree with like, people aren't inherently evil. The things we do, now that shit's evil. But yeah. Say what you want about Kraven, as a character, but in this movie, he's actually a better sibling than Shang-Chi. Because, yeah, they both ran off in the middle of the night and left their siblings with abusive fathers after the passing of their mother. But unlike Shang-Chi, he actually visits his sibling now and then, and they maintain a good relationship to the point that he's able to call him and be like, hey, Sergei, how's it going? Like, you coming to my birthday this year or what? Like, the fact that they're able to maintain that rapport despite all the shit that's going on, and they're actually cool with each other, and his brother actually forgives him for walking out on him, and he doesn't just show up when he needs something, unlike Shang-Chi. Like, the fact that that's what's going on is, it's good. His brother actually forgives him for running off. That they're actually good siblings. He's kind of a better sibling than Shang-Chi, but like the moment his brother was like telling him like, hey man, like, hey Sergei, like you running off and everything, I forgive you. I forgive you that even though you left me with our abusive dad and all that, I forgive you. It's all cool, man. I just looking at this dude and I'm like, oh man. At that moment I was like, he's gonna die, isn't he? He about to die soon. Like he's gonna die at some point, and like that's gonna motivate Kraven to go after the villain. Like, why are you doing this, man? I'm actually starting to like this dude. I'm starting to feel like you gotta feel sorry for this guy. Um he's a mimic, because okay, Kraven's brother in this universe will go on to be the chameleon, because he already has this ability to mimic voices down to like the precise cadence of people's voices and shit. He mimics his dad's voice now and then, and like he mimics voices now and then, but that's just it. He's a mimic. Like they'll have lines in there where he's like, oh yeah, my son, he was like quite the chameleon. It's like not really, man. Like he mimics voices. He doesn't mimic people's faces or their movements. He's more of a parrot than a chameleon, but chameleon, not a comedian. That's a different guy. That's a guy from Watchmen. What happened to the American dream? It came true. You're looking at it. Like, that's the comedian. What I'm talking about is the chameleon. He's one of Spider-Man's villains. His thing is like he can change his face and appearance to look like anybody. So that's what makes him work. But in this version, he's just Kraven's brother, and he has the power to mimic voices. Something like they have, but they don't use all that much. That they'll do it now and then to remind you that he can do it, and he uses it to great effect. The closest thing he comes to using it to great effect is when he mimics voices and he's singing at his club. Like he pretends to be Harry Styles. Like he doesn't pretend to be, like he does Sign of the Times by Harry Styles. He does another song, and his dad is like sitting there at the club that he's at. He's just having a meeting, and like, hey, up there, that's my son. Like he does this song. He's singing that song, not the Sign of the Times. The other song he's singing is like he sings that song for me. He's singing that song for me. He knows I like this kind of music, and he's singing it pretty good. Like I'll give him props for that. So Nikolai isn't 100% piece of shit. He's not just anger and toxic masculinity. He does have this very few, like one or two moments where he's being a dad, like so, and he does have some pride in his boys. That shit is immediately undone after the shootout happens and he narrowly survives, and his son is like, look what they did to my club, and he's like Nikolai gets mad and he's like you were fucking hiding under a piano table, and like all the shit was going on. Like I got they got an army coming after me, and all I got is my son, the piano player. And it's like oh man, like it was a minute ago that shit was commendable. Now it's like my son, the piano player. Like this is all I got watching my back. Fuck's sake, man. But yeah, Russell Crowe in this role, his Russian accent does have some similarities to his like Italian accent from Pope's Exorcist. Like it does kind of sound similar, almost to the point that you can be like, well, Pope, what's his face after the events of that movie probably just like sired a few kids, got into the Russian crime game. Like it could, if that's the canon, I'll buy that. That's some good canon right there. But that ain't what's happening. So yeah, I like that we see like his shady dealings in a way, like he's a real scary dude. He's the kind of dude like you don't just send one hitman after, you got to send the whole team, and even that don't work out. So then you got to get creative, because we see what happens to Sixevich in the ensuing years, and like he's the guy going after Nikolai and his business, and he really wants to take over, so he's gonna do whatever it takes to do that. If he can't take out Nikolai, then he can at least take something that he does value. So Alessandro what's his name? Alessandro Navarro, I think his name is. Like, I hope I'm getting that right. So yeah, his version of the Rhino is actually pretty good. Like it's a damn sight better than Paul Giamatti's version of the Rhino. Like, holy shit, that character was just common. Alessandro Nivola. I'm sorry about it. Keep messing up dude's last name. Alessandro Nivola. His version of the Rhino is a better version of the Rhino than Paul Giamatti's, because Paul Giamatti's was just, I don't know, it's just a random Russian thug in a suit. Like, that's all it is. He's just a thug in a giant mech suit. He's basically a transformer. It's nothing impressive. So to have this new version of the character where, it's more in line with the Ultimate's version of the Rhino, where instead of a guy in a suit, it's a dude who he has a power that's like something out of the movie Project Power, you know. But yeah, I think that's a good thing going. He has a few funny scenes, like that one scene where he goes to meet these guys after. See, Kraven takes out this mob boss in jail, and now the Rhino is going to meet. So Alexi's going to meet with his remaining lieutenants, and he's like, "Hey, who wants to be my partner? You guys are all that's left of that guy's operation. One of you is going to be running the whole thing. So which of you wants to be my partner?" And they laugh him off initially, but like he, takes this tube out of he disconnects this tube and he gets this rock hard skin that makes him bulletproof. And after doing that, he takes out all the guys that are in meeting with, gets taken out, and it's just two left. And it's reminiscent to that scene where Joker looks to hire these two thugs, these two guys who used to be with Gamble, and he gives them the opportunity, like, okay, who wants to join me? Like, it's entirely up to you. And he gives them both these broken pool cues, and so it's basically like, hey, whoever's left gets to live, like, you get to join me, like, and it's kind of like that. So it's just these two guys, and like, show me your pitch, who wants the job? And seeing what's going on, the guy on the right immediately just puts a bullet in the other guy's head, and I'm sitting there in the theater, I'm like, that was a great pitch. And then right after fucking right after that, Alexi's like, good pitch. I'm like, what the fuck? This movie's dialogue is predictable in a lot of places. I'll give it that much. Like, I wasn't saying that to be snarky. I just like said that like, oh, that was a pretty good, great pitch. And then like, so like, oh, good pitch. Like minutes later, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this movie's dialogue is predictable, but it's predictable in a good way. Like, it's that action movie dialogue, not generic action movie dialogue, but like, to the point where it's like you've heard it in over a dozen movies, but it's like, if you're a fan of action movies, you'll recognize some of the stuff people say, some of the things that happen. Like, yes, this is typical of the action genre, but it's done in a really good way. Not to the point that it's like, oh, this shit again. But like, it's done well here. So yeah, the next step in his plan after taking out that guy, he goes to kidnap Nikolai's son. And there's this chase scene where Kraven is like running after the guys who took his brother. During this chase scene, I can't help but feel like someone confused Kraven with Khazar at this point, because there's like, he's running, he's got no shoes on, he's like sliding down buildings and shit, and he's like jumping from rooftop to rooftop and doing all this stuff, and it's amazing. I'm like, wait a minute, this is a lot in line with that guy Khazar. Like, Kraven wouldn't do this. Like, I don't see, because Kraven's never been that guy. He's never been that guy where he's like, he has like superhuman abilities or anything. He's just been a normal human being who has trained himself and like gotten himself into such a great shape that his ability to hunt seems almost superhuman. He didn't need any soldier serum or any of that. But like, this feels more like something Khazar would do, in that, when J. Jonah Jameson hired Khazar to take on Spider-Man and he was doing shit like this, it was kind of like that. It kind of, in like he was chasing him down, it kind of reminded me of that. So yeah. He chases down the bad guys who like get in this chopper, and like he is fucking up their van. Like, he is punching the shit out of this glass, and like the one guy tries to shoot through the glass, and it just like comes back. It's like, pew! It's like, and the other henchman is like, it's bulletproof. It's inside and out. Like, this movie's funny. I'll give it crap. This movie has its moments, but yeah. There's, so they go from the van into this helicopter, and as they're getting away, he manages to snare the bottom of the helicopter with this net, and he's holding on for dear life while he's getting dragged away. And, as it's dragging him around, I couldn't help but be reminded of Insomniac Spider-Man 2, when like the now venomized Spider-Man is chasing he's chasing down that helicopter that's got like the lizard in it, and it also kind of reminded me of Rumble in the Bronx when Jackie Chan's character is being like dragged for, I think it was dragged by that boat, and he's like skating along the water. Like yeah, that kind of reminded me of that. So great chase scene. You could, you kind of, yeah, I liked it. That scene where he's like on top of the car trying to like bust through the window, or like the scene where he's like almost ripping off the door. You get to truly see like how strong this character is, how fast he is, like how damn destructive he can be in a lot of ways. There's scenes throughout that show like how powerful Kraven can be and how truly ill-equipped the people he's going after are, and it makes sense. You know, when you have this extraordinary hero fucking up your plans, it makes sense for the villain to seek out extraordinary help. And in comes the foreigner. You know, this guy, the foreigner, he has this power where, he takes off his glasses and he makes eye contact with you, and he's like, one, two, and it's like the way you look at it from your perspective, he's still standing there, but in reality, he's moved. He's like, he ain't there no more. Like he's moved somewhere else. I think his powers are illusion, or his powers work kind of like that guy Vertigo. I Yeah, well, he like, he causes people to trip the fuck out almost, but like, I don't know. They see shit that isn't there. Meanwhile, he's snuck around behind you and he's like taking you out. Yeah, it kind of comes across that way, but I don't know. So yeah, the foreigner is looking for Kraven. Okay, that's where the movie is like, okay, this is kind of cliche, some cliche shit, because it turns out that one of the people that Kraven took out earlier, not earlier in the movie, but like over the course of his many years of taking people out, was the master of the foreigner. And it's like, you took out my master, and now I'm gonna get, he's the guy who taught me everything I know. He was like a father to me, and now I'm coming for you to get the revenge. And it's like, it's some cliche bullshit, man. It's fucking Tomorrow Never Dies did the same thing with that blonde guy in that blonde guy in that movie, when he revealed like, oh yeah, the dude that James Bond killed early in the movie was like a father to the main henchman, and now the main henchman wants the revenge on James Bond. Yeah, you get that boilerplate thing, like it's just whatever. It's a reason for this villain to be here. Give the main hero a villain that that isn't just gonna try to match him in a battle of fisticuffs. That has to come up with a creative way to take him down. And he does. He has this like plant that he that becomes like this poison. First, it causes you to experience like horrible nightmares. Then it like paralyzes you, and that will leave Kraven vulnerable enough to the point where this dude can take him out. So he knows. The thing I appreciate about the foreigner is like he knows that he can't take Kraven on one, given how strong he is, how fast he is, and everything. So even with his abilities, so he employs these tactics to like, this tactic to weaken him and get him in a place where he's vulnerable enough and then he can be taken out. That's something I applaud. But like, what I don't applaud is that he just becomes this cliche villain bullshit of like talking long enough that, he gets taken out. Cause like, okay, I forgot to mention Calypso, right? So there's a character named Calypso in this movie. She gave Kraven the serum earlier in the film that helped heal him and give him the abilities he has now. Since then, she's become a reporter for this big firm, and she has this moment where she's giving a eulogy for a colleague of hers who was also a reporter who was clearly taken out by bad people, for her reporting, for what she was reporting on. And she's giving this eulogy, and I'm like, this is a terrible eulogy. Because midway through this eulogy, she starts talking about, like, she was killed, and the people, like, escaped justice, or whatever. I'm like, the fuck are you doing? This ain't about that. This is not how you do a eulogy. You don't give a eulogy talking about how good someone is, and then halfway talk about how they died, and who's responsible, and how, like, they got away with it and shit. I'm like, the lasting memories of these people are gonna have this person is, who the fuck is this crazy chick coming up and talking about like how a relative perished? Like what the fuck? What kind of eulogy is this? It's a year of bad eulogies apparently. This and Divorce in the Black are like, neck and neck for worst eulogy of 2024. Shit. But other than that, Calypso is this like this not a reporter, she's a lawyer, and she gives Kraven the information he needs to track down the people who kidnapped his brother. So she works as that character, and when her life is at risk, he takes her back to his secret hideout. There she finds this like crossbow. Ultimately, she reveals like, yeah, I know how to use a crossbow. I got pretty good at it, and good enough that she saves Kraven in when he needs it the most, like when he's been paralyzed and he's having these hallucinations of like spiders raining down, and he's like generally seems generally afraid. That's it also leads to this scene where the foreigner has a gun pointed right at Kraven's head, and he's doing his like 1, 2. When he gets to that 3, he pops you right in the head. But like, his scene reminded me of that time Jack Black showed up on SNL. What's this? He showed up on the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon and had that like toy flute. No, not toy flute, like this toy horn. And he's like, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, motherfucker. It's like that because the guy was like, he had the gun pointed at Kraven's head, and he goes 1, 2. An arrow hits him right in his head, and the Calypso goes 3, motherfucker. Shit. man, this shit's hilarious. I'll give it that much. Yeah. So yeah, she helps him out. He gets back in fighting shape, and he leads this stampede of buffalo and like wildebeest or something to take out Alexis and Savage and his crew. But like his dude's brother survives, Savage survives, and he totally disconnects the thing, and his whole body just turns rock solid, and he becomes like the rhino in like his full form. We have this brutal fight between them, and you can see like this is a good fight in the sense that it's okay. Up until now, you've just been taking on regular henchmen, ordinary human beings. You've been able to overcome them through sheer power and speed and savagery. But what happens now when you go up against a villain who is stronger than you, bigger than you, and has this near indestructible skin? So it's like, fuck's sakes, how are you gonna take on this kind of force? It's kind of like when Superman fought Doomsday. Like, it's normally Superman would be able to just outpower or just outmatch an opponent somehow, but now he's going up against an opponent that is just pure rage and destruction, and is seemingly nigh unkillable. Like, he has to come up with a way to find a weakness and exploit it. So there's no way he's gonna outpower this thing. There's no way he's gonna outmaneuver this fucking thing. Like, so normally he would try to stab somebody or like claw at them or just beat the crap out of them, but he can't do that because like the rock hard skin. And so right away he understands this too, because he tries to the knife he's using has this spot in it where his fist slide in that kind of acts like a knuckle duster. So he punches the thing. So he punches the rhino, and like the part where the knuckle duster piece would be is all bent and fucked up. It's like immediately it's like, oh shit. That I give props to that. Go, that fight was really good, and the fact that he wins not by just discovering some hidden strength that he had in where he becomes suddenly stronger than the main villain. Nah, it's good that they didn't go that route. That he exposed an already established weakness when he stabbed Sid Savage in the space where the tube goes that stops him from transforming. Like, he got him right there, just like stabbed him right there in that one weak spot. That was a good, that was good, and it was a good fight scene. The reveal that it was his dad who was responsible for all this shit, like, yeah, that you could see. Like I said, the movie's in some places is predictable, but it's like it's not played like a huge twist. Like, oh, it's like, yeah, you could kind of get this guy responsible for this shit. Like, he's the kind of person who would do this as a way to like try to force Kraven out of hiding and get him to come back into the fold, even if it meant sacrificing his youngest son. Like, they stressed out the movie is an illegitimate child. Like, even when Kraven's dad is like sitting with his buddies and he's just talking, is like, like, like I only like, yeah, I have like one real son, The only reason I have that other son is because I have a wandering eye. Like that's not verbatim, but like that's basically what he says. And like yeah, I have this son, but I have this other son because, well, you know, hey man, I couldn't keep it in my pants. Okay, like he just admits it. Like eh, shit happens. I didn't plan that. That first kid, that is 100% my kid. That second kid, it just happened. But yeah. Anywho, as I was going on, what's this? Oh yeah. So yeah, he explains like the security footage that led us to you, that let us know you on to us. Like we kind of got that from a source that turned out to be your dad. Like who else could it be? So like it makes sense. Like yeah, that's what happened. But there's this moment with Craven's brother where, because throughout the movie, everyone been encountering has been telling him that he's weak. He is weak. Like he's not like Craven. He's not like his dad. Like you're nothing like them. Like you're not cut out for this kind of life or shit like that. They've basically been trying to make him feel like a less than. They've been treating him like a less than. And to his credit, he's been standing his ground, even when like threatened with death. Like he does stand his ground. And there's this moment here as Alexei is dying, like he's laying there all bloody and shit, and slowly changing back into a human. That Dimitri comes up and he pulls a gun on him, and Craven is like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, man, this ain't you, okay? Like, this is." He tries to tell him like, "Nah, man, this is some shit that I do. This is some shit that our dad does, but this is not you, man. You're innocent in all this. This ain't you. You don't need to do this, man. Just give me the gun." Like it's one of those type scenes. You have seen that in a bunch of movies. You've definitely seen that scene in a bunch of movies before this, where he's like, "Man, I'm fucked up. All right, but it's gotta end, man. This shit's gotta stop somewhere. Don't let yourself become fucked up too. Just hand me the gun, man. Give me the gun." Like they don't get that over dramatic with it, but like it's definitely one of them scenes. But yeah, man, shit. So after that, it's unfortunate that they do that. Like because later they have the scene where Craven and his brother are back at his club. It's like after you know Craven's met with his dad and he gets him killed when he sabotages one of his weapons on a hunting trip, and he gets taken out by this huge bear. Because before that, his dad basically admits, like, yeah, I leaked that info to so and so, and I was never really gonna pay when they kidnapped him and they were holding him for ransom. I was never gonna pay because I know that that ain't what this is about. Like, like if I pay, I look weak, and if I don't pay, they're gonna kill him anyway. It's a loser situation. I know that like they're gonna kill him anyway because it's what I would do. And like the fact that he says that is like, man, that's fucked up. Like that is fucked up, but like you understand, like, yep, it's very fitting with that character. It does sound like some shit that he would do. The fact that he knows, like, yeah, they'd kill this motherfucker because hell, I would. Shit. But yeah, it's fucking terrible. Like this character is terrible, but not like cartoonishly evil, and I applaud that. He's a realistic kind of bad guy in the sense that he's not bad all day, every day. He does have his moments where he does try to be a normal guy, but like, yeah, you can understand why his family don't like him. You also understand why his like men or anything, why people fear him. You understand how this man got to where he is, doing what he does. It's like Kaiser Soze said in Usual Suspects. You don't really need numbers, or you don't need guns. You just need to be willing to do what the other guy won't. And like Nikolai Kravenov definitely seems like the kind of guy who would go that far. He would definitely 100% go to a depth and do what no ordinary person wouldn't. So yeah, the fact that he gets taken out not by Craven, he gets taken out because of Craven. Like, and that's it's fitting that for years, this guy who's hunted animals for years and has all these heads and everything and pelts and all that, he gets taken out by an animal while he's going hunting. So yeah, there's that. It gave a fitting death for a despisable character. Getting back to the civilization, a year later, they meet again on Dimitri's birthday. And it's like in this scene we see like in the time span since he's taken over his dad's organization, he's now doing the same shit his dad was doing, and his brother disagrees with him. He's like, "Hey man, I didn't pull your ass out of the fire just so you can become him, like, so just so you can become just like him, so you can do the same shit he was doing before." And it's like, okay, before this, I just need to mention they removed his finger so they could send it as ransom to not as ransom, so they could send it to Nikolai to let him know, like, yeah, we have your son, and let you know we serious. We cut off his finger too. Like, it's shit like that. They wanted to do that, like this shit like that. They did that, and in the scenes where he was held captive, you saw his hand was all bandaged up and bloody and shit. So like later in the movie, the 1 year later jump, when you see him standing on like the stage and he's singing, he's back in his club, you could kind of see for a moment, it's like they forget. Like you can see like, yeah, they CGI'd his finger out, but like there are some shots where it's like it looks like they forgot to CGI his fingers out, because like it like you'll see it for a second and it immediately cuts away, and then like he'll be back like holding the mic on mic, and then it immediately cuts to another angle where he's like holding the mic a different way, or it cuts to a different shot, or what the fuck ever. It's like, hey, don't show that. Like, or like, hey man, this shit is expensive. We can't keep showing that hand. Like, switch hands, goddammit. We can't keep showing that missing finger. That shit costs money. And then we just don't see it. It's like, when he's chatting with his brother, his like hand that's missing a finger is like under the table, or it's like, out of view or whatever. It's just like, oh shit. It's kind of like Jack or Generations, where like he had that hand that was missing fingers, and he had this glove to show which hand it was, but like the glove switched hands. Like eventually, you're just like, wait a minute, which hand is missing fingers? Like, which? Yeah. But that's all that to one side. So Kraven's brother is now taking over his dad's business, and he's got friends in like the Bratva and everything, which is the Russian mob. So it's like, even Kraven's like, hey, since when do you have friends in the mob? Like, what's going on here? Like, they told him like, yeah, he took over his dad's business. He's gonna do all this shit. Like, what, you think that you're nothing like him just because you got a code? Like, nah, man, you're just like him. You also kill people. Like, you both like thought y'all was something different. Like, y'all was something special just because I don't know anything. It's like, it tells him, I went to this doctor in New York, and he's, it was this procedure going on, and it's done. There's some changes have been made or some shit, and you're thinking like, wait, what the you talking about? By this point, I forgot that this character was supposed to be the chameleon. They're like, they have this argument, and he walks off, and like as he's walking off, like Kraven's behind him, like Dimitri, and he turns him around. But then when he turns around, he looks just like Kraven. I was like, what the fuck? Like, then I remember, like, oh yeah, he's the chameleon. Like, so that's what he meant when he went to go see that doctor, and he got all changed up, and yeah, he did some things to him. And then as he turns around and walks off, his like face changes again, and we actually see the comic accurate like white faced chameleon before he like changes back to his usual self. It's like, oh, okay. Not, there's something there. Like, okay, this dude he's no longer just going to be the character he was before. He's not going to rely on, anyone else to step in for him. He's finally going to step up and, essentially, be his own man. Like he's done, it's kind of like what happened with the rhino, like he explained, like, he was weak at one point and he didn't want to be weak anymore because people treated him like shit because he was weak. So he sought out a way to be strong, and like that way ultimately led to him becoming who he was. That was what ended up with him becoming the rhino. He was strong, but it came at a cost. And it's kind of like that with Dimitri. He didn't want to be treated like shit anymore. Like he was always told, like, you're like a chameleon almost. Now he's really like a chameleon in how he doesn't just mimic voices, but he can mimic people's faces. But what's kind of hilarious is like, yeah, you mimic Kraven's face, but you're still the same height and like size that you are. You're still like shorter than him. He still has to like look down a bit to see you. It's like, yeah, facially you look like Kraven, but like physically, not so much. Like, yes, your chameleonic power works, but it only works with someone who's like the same height and build as you if you want to do it effectively. But ooh, yeah. So yeah, there's that. The movie has room for a sequel if it makes enough money, though it doesn't sequel bait. It sequel baits effectively, I'll give it that much. Kraven gets his comic accurate costume, which is made from the mane of the lion that almost took him out. He gets it like at the very end of the movie, and we get this shot of him sitting in a chair looking at himself in the mirror. That's straight up the shot that's in all the marketing and all the posters and shit. Like that was you get this sick shot. So yeah, what I liked about them. Yeah, that was my review of the movie. So on to the epilogue, if you will. Here we are in the epilogue. The final thoughts of my review of Kraven the Hunter. I like this one of the Rhino. It's the one. It's like the one from Ultimate Spider-Man in that he's the Rhino thanks to a serum that changes his physical attributes so that he can have hard skin, and increases strength, and gives him that Rhino horn. It's a better fit for this for this version instead of just having a guy in a mech suit, you know, or just a big guy in a silly costume with a rhino horn on it. The CGI for the rhino Duke, I'm not gonna lie, it looked weird sometimes, okay? It looked weird. Like when his skin would start to transform, he looked like he was turning to stone or something. Or he was like really ashy or something. Yeah, but then again, it's a SUMC movie. They're not exactly known for their special effects, and it's a little better than CW. Damn sight better than them other Sony universe of Marvel crud movies. Yeah, I absolutely enjoyed this like version of the Rhino in the sense that his like him being this dude who was looked down upon by others and he didn't want to do that. He didn't want that to happen anymore. So he got willing to do whatever it was to become so powerful that he wouldn't get stepped on anymore. And this places in the film where he seems to be having fun in the role. Unlike most Sony Marvel villains, he's actually memorable, and he's a fun contrast to the more stoic Kraven. It's also fitting that Kraven, who attend his physical augmentations and gifts through natural means, natural if not mystic means, is able to enjoy all those benefits, but none of the downside. Whereas Rhino attained his through science and basically took a shortcut. He now has to contend with huge downsides in that, yeah, he becomes strong and near invulnerable, but it also causes him considerable pain to do so. Aaron Taylor Johnson as Kraven was actually some decent casting. He plays the brooding antihero parts really well. He's able to have his natural charm to him when he's chatting with Calypso or like talking to his brother. And in the few scenes they have, because too often action movies have like this stoic badass just be the stoic badass for most of the movie, and they rarely let up or let you know who they are when they're like just chilling and kicking back. So this it's good that this movie shows what Kraven is like when he's not hunting people. We get to see the hero at rest. That's a good thing. It makes it easier for you to like him and get behind him as the quote unquote hero of the film. So yeah. um Dimitri in this film, I didn't his turn at the end where he goes full on chameleon and becomes, I keep trying to say chameleon and it comes out as comedian. I don't know why. I don't know why, man. What the fuck? I don't know what's going on there, but where he goes full on chameleon and becomes basically the kind of dude his dad wanted him to be, like at the end, you know, that it seemed like it just came out of nowhere because there was that scene where he wanted to shoot Sid Savage, but he didn't get around to it because like Craven stood in the way. If you wanted to have that turn where he just like, oh yeah, 1 year later and bam, he's now a Russian mob boss. He's doing the same shit that you know his dad was doing. If you really wanted to do that, like you should have had this moment where like Craven was looking down at Sid Savage as he was turning back human, and be like, oh, and he goes like, I wish I'd never met you, Kravenoffs. And then blam, he gets shot. A bullet seemingly comes from nowhere. Craven turns around and it's his brother standing there with the gun. That's what you should have done. Like that's what, that should have been that. That's the moment you should have had if you really wanted to have this turn and like show like he's not weak anymore. He's not gonna like let people solve his problems for him. And it's ultimately him who finishes off the rhino instead of Craven, like have that be the moment there. Because before that, there were moments where it seemed like he was going to be the one innocent person, aside from like Calypso, like he was the innocent in all this. He was the one guy who wasn't going to be like Craven. He wasn't going to be like his dad. He wasn't going to kill anybody or any of that. And, but he was in a world where it was kill or be killed. It seemed like he would be like the one character to not do that. And given opportunity to betray his brother, given opportunity to take, his father's place. That was, and he said no. The fact that he's able to stand his ground and say no in that instance, it's like shows that he's not weak. And, he's willing to stand up for himself in those instances. Um, the relationship between them, like him and his dad, got really, it's like it shows like an actual example of a toxic relationship. It's like the dad who is frustrated that his son isn't like him. Like yeah, he does have a son who's like him and a son who's nothing like him. In his eyes, Kraven is his real son, and like, Dimitri just is just there. Like he's like straight up becomes really abusive in the aftermath of that shooting at the club, where he's like, and he like gets all up in his face, and he's like yelling at him, like get mad, like do like hit me, come on, do something, and he doesn't. He just like shoves him right off. It's like fucking nothing. Like just he's disappointed. Like it's this question of like, is that really what you want, man? Do you really want to be hit by your own son? Because if he does hit you, you're not gonna be like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like, okay, he might, because that's this character. It would make sense this character, but at the same time, it's like you deep down, it's like he hits you, and then what? Are you gonna cheer him now? Are you gonna celebrate him if he actually hits you? You're gonna give him some respect, or are you just gonna clobber him back? Like the fucking like you realistically, you'd be like, how dare you? Like strike your own father, you would be like, blow, just like level motherfucker. So there's no winning here. It's just but like yeah, it's like the fact that he was able to stand his ground in the face of death, even in the face of like this constant abuse, that he didn't just become like a whimpering mess or something. But like the weird moments where like, you have the Sid Savage like trying to convince him to like, like join me, like be my partner, and like he's like right next to him. He's got his hand on his shoulder. He's like almost whispering in his ear, he's trying to sweet talk him. And I'm like, is he trying to fuck this dude? What's he doing? He's like right up in here, like it's like it's like yeah, you can, so be my partner and all this, like hey, I'm just watching like, hey man, when you say partner, like what you mean? What are you trying to say, man? Like I don't see no girls around here, man. Like what's going? I'm only asking because there ain't no women in this joint. There ain't no. Where's the? Hey, wait, I'm moving away from that to a side. Like what happened to the dog? He had a dog, because Alexis and Savage had a dog that went everywhere with him, and it was like the one person he was nice to in the whole movie. Well, not always. There was like the point where, he like passed the dog a ball, and he was like, "Come on, boy, give me the ball, give me the ball." What? Oh, you want me to beg? Oh, I don't beg. Like, and he like walks up to the dog and he fucking manhandles this fucking thing. And like basically just rips the fucking ball out of its mouth. And you can tell, like, I'm watching this shit. I'm like, holy shit, man, is he gonna? I kept thinking something bad was gonna happen to the dog, but then he's like, no, 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 like, come on, like, hey, what's wrong with you? Like, hey, don't worry, like, I'm just playing. It's like, shit, even the dog is in an abusive relationship, man. The fuck, man? Is nobody just living a normal life in this motherfucker? Even the dog is getting it. Like, goddamn. Oh shit. But yeah, the dog just vanishes. Like, we don't see anything. Nothing bad happens to the dog. Like, I don't think anything bad. Like, yeah, he's in the car with them, and there's a huge car crash, and we don't see him come out of it. So I assume he didn't make it. But at the same time, we don't see it. So it's like, I didn't want anything grisly to happen to the dog. They're not going to do that. The dog didn't do nothing to nobody. But, like, still, the dog just vanishes from the film. Whatever. Oh, shit. Moving along. So, yeah, I think that's about everything. I liked the movie. I gave it a 7 out of 10, man. Like, it's quite a way for the universe to go out. If ever there was a good way for the SUMC to end, I'm glad this is it. I'm glad this movie is the last movie in the Sony universe of Marvel characters, Kraven the Hunter is the last film in this universe, and it's a good way to go out. Hey, finally, Sony Pictures managed to accidentally their way into a good movie. I'm astounded. I'm as surprised as anybody. This studio actually managed to accidentally their way into doing something right. and I give him props for that. I like the action, I like the casting, I like the performances, the humor in there. There's a scene where Kraven and his brother are going into the club and they walk past this guy and this woman, and he's like, "Oh, nice perfume." She's like, "I'm not wearing any." And then Kraven looks at the guy, and the guy's like, "No, no, no, no." And Kraven's like, "Hey, she was gonna find out sooner or later, man." Yeah, that was good. 7 out of 10. Would recommend. I would probably watch again. That's all I got to say on that one. Peace.